One question I get asked quite often is, how did I do it? Especially with Canva, how did I get it to look the way I get it to look, right? So for this syllabus abstract that I put up on our Canvas page, this is the original document, and I'm going to just take some time to walk you through exactly what I'm going to be doing when I design this document. Okay, so just to give you an idea. Okay, so this is from last semester, and what I'm going to do is to duplicate this so that I don't lose it. So I have a new version of it, right? How did I get to this kind of a version? Okay, what I do generally is I go to design and then I look for, say, infographic templates. This is not an infographic because this is an A4 paper size, but I look at infographic templates because it gives me an idea of layout and color schemes that I can use. Okay, so I start by looking at this. Another one that you could look at is also resume templates. And again, looking basically at just the design elements of it. Okay, so in this case, I already have the colors and all pretty set. I'm quite happy with them, so I'm not going to change much of that. What I'm really going to be doing now is editing what's already there for any new things that have changed in the syllabus. So one of the first things would, of course, be the date will have to be changed. So I pull up the syllabus and then I just copy over. So it's Jan 1. Now I mentioned in another video that I have vision problems, and so I do tend to make everything a little bigger, and you have the zoom element at the bottom, which is very helpful, especially when you're aligning these things. It's tremendously helpful. Okay, and then okay, nothing to change over here. And we talked about this when we were in the video about images, and so icons, these are nice icons that kind of break up the monotony, right? So course materials, so I pulled up a book. This was for synchronous sessions and hence a phone. If what I usually do for this is I go to elements and then I search for, say, books. I get a lot of different graphics, then you can select from that. I do have to tell you that I have a paid version for Canva, so not all these graphics might be available for you, but for the work you're doing, what the free is more than sufficient, so please don't pay for anything, okay? I haven't changed the objectives of the course, so that stays the same. AI usage is also the same, and these examples all remain the same. Okay, so nothing to change over there. Now I come here, this is no longer a pass-fail course, so I need to change this up completely because the assignments now have changed, and we have now 4 assignments and they all have different percentages with them, right? So what I'm going to do is basically just, so I've copied the assignments from my syllabus and I'm just pasting it over here. I am not thinking about layout or anything. I'm just getting the content into this particular page at this point. Okay, now once I've done that, obviously I can't see much of what is there, so I'm going to move this around, just drag it up. Okay, peer feedback is not graded, so I'm going to take that out. I just want to focus on the graded assignments in this. Delete the extra space. Okay, so now I have this, but I don't, and this was a bulleted list, so I've got this weird little dot over here that needs to go away. Okay, I'm looking at this. I don't like it being center aligned, so I'm going to do a right align. Okay, and then let's try adding bullet points to it. Okay, not bad, but I'm not sure about this percentage thing. Does it stand out enough? And at the same time, let me zoom out a bit. It doesn't stand out enough, right? We're talking about assignments and grades, but it isn't catching your eye at this point, and that's a bit of a problem. Another thing I like to do when we have things like these percentages and all, especially with the syllabus abstract, is to use a pie graph. And so for that, again, I can go into elements in Canva and look for, okay, so I need to get rid of this. And then I go look for charts. When I do that, it'll pull up pie charts for me, and I want I think a donut might be nice. Let's go with a donut. Now I'm going to add the things to the donut. What am I basically adding here? I'm going to add each of the assignments here. So let's say, you'll notice it has a table here that's going to take, and I'm putting in right, let's do the next one. It really is easy. These were features that were not in Canva before, but they've been added now, and so it's very helpful. And then the last one is the reflection for 20%. And I don't need this, so I remove these. Okay, now let's take a look. You notice it has added the legend for this. Now this is the color scheme. I've got the blue color range over here. Let me see what other colors I could do. So I could potentially change each of these to something else. I think I like the light blue as it is. Maybe I will do a green. And a orange. Maybe a pink. Not sure I really like it, but it does help it stand out. Now we talked about color and repetition of colors. So if I do use these colors, what I will be doing is to use the same colors when I am talking about it later on and describing the assignment. Just to maintain that continuity, I will use the same colors. The green, do I like this green? Not sure. Go back to what it was. Okay, and now comes the fun part of figuring out how this layout will work, right? Because it's a very nice little graph, but we do need the graph to fit into our And one of the issues over here is the fact that this creating a well-designed document is so long that it's taking up so much extra space. So I'm going to make this text document. Let's just say evaluate Canvas pages. Okay, that has definitely brought it down a bit. Now I need it to be around this size for it to kind of work in this space, and I need to make sure that all of these are big enough for a person to see. So what I would do in these instances is I would actually probably pull up a shape, and I will put the shape over this text that's there, completely cover it up, and I will give a separate legend over here using a font that works better, and it'll give me more control over exactly where that shows up. So this was the reflection for 20%. So I put this here. I add a text box. Maybe I can go a little smaller than that. Okay, and I need it to be white. And then I move this into this box that I have. Okay, and arrange that. Now we talked about spacing between lines, and that comes into play over here. I can change my line spacing, make it closer or wider. In this instance, I think closer would be good. So let's go for a 1 over here. And I think that works. So now if we zoom out, you can see the graph and you can see the legend for it clearly, right? So that's something that I will be playing around with for sure. Now when I come here, I've used these colors for the assignments. Last semester the assignments were a little different. We had an extra thing over here, but now it's being replaced by evaluating the Canvas page. So I'm going to change this around and make this evaluating the Canvas page, and I'll add a small blurb about the Canvas page assignment itself. And then I need to reorganize things. Now the technology resources remain the same. My help resources are not going to change. And finally, I've got the calendar, which I can make changes to. But other than that, this section of it, I'm going to have to now play with to make sure that it lays out nicely, because when I change this to just a Canvas LMS evaluation, I will not need so much of space for it. It's probably going to be another little box like this green box versus something like this purple box. So spacing now becomes something I need to think about a little bit more. I might not include peer feedback here because it's not a graded assignment, right? So if I were to put another box here, okay, let's do this. I'm gonna delete that, make my box smaller, align it with that. And then what I'll do is I will ungroup this. Now that I've ungrouped them, what I can do is move this assignment along with these three. So let's do that. And I need to change the size of this. So I'm going to there. And as I mentioned in the overview lecture video, alignment is very important. You want to make sure it's all aligning perfectly. Okay, now if I were to take this off, I would get a whole lot of white space over here, which would then allow me to make this diagram bigger if I were to move everything down. So what I might do is, I don't have to give this up then. I can potentially move this up, change its dimensions. I will change its color later. Because it is different from the others, it's ungraded. And so I will be changing its color to show that difference. Okay, so now I have all of these. What I'm probably going to do is, I'm just going to click and drag and select everything in this, group them together, and then I'm going to move them down. Okay, there we go. And once that's done, I now have space to make this a little bigger. I might in fact think about changing this from a donut to a, let's try a pie. Okay, with a pie, all right, that's interesting. Let's try maybe a bar chart. I think for assignments, a pie is always nicer to give you an idea of where most of the points are going, right? Now, in all of these things, anytime you want to undo something you've done, you've got the undo button, or always Control Z or Control Z or Command Z, and that will undo whatever you've done. So if I wanted to go back to my original colors, yep, I just did Control Z a couple of times and I got this. So I'm going to play around with this. I'll be updating the text, and all of that together will give me the final-ish document. Now I say ish because what I will do once I have completed this is I export this, so I share it and I download it as an image file, because on your Canvas site you will see that the embedded syllabus abstract has audio embedded in it. So there's another layer of technology there, right? And this is goes back to stacking technologies. So I create it in Canva. And the next thing I do is I go to my Google Slides, because Google Slides does this well. And why am I selecting Google Slides? Because Google Slides can embed into Canvas. My Canva pages cannot. So I go into Google Slide and then I will paste the image over here. Once that's done, I then record these little individual audio recordings and then I add them to the different areas. So it's pretty involved to do this, but the hope is that it is helpful for learners so that they get a one-shot view of the whole syllabus, hence the syllabus abstract, right? And so that's the stacking that I do to create this itself.